I will now read an excerpt from Moya Brown's daily log. Just about everyone in the Capital Wasteland has a story about the Lone Wanderer, even though precious few ever really knew him, but that doesn't stop them from telling crazy tall tales about how he saved their lives, or blew up a mountain, or ate a car, or something. Heck, if you get Sims drunk, he'll tell you that his dad died because of the Lone Wanderer, even though he saved the town. People can't agree on whether the Lone Wanderer was a man or a woman, much less a saint or a monster. But they all agree on one thing: the Lone Wanderer changed the Capital Wasteland. Then moved to Boston after his wife was assassinated by the Brotherhood, changed his face, joined the railroad, then took up the codename Deacon. That's right, Deacon. I got you, you son of a bitch. This is how Deacon is the Lone Wanderer, in my opinion. Hello everyone, my name is Techtatious, you can call me Tech, and today I promise you, I will blow your freaking mind. But first, let me clarify, I did not come up with this theory, nor have I ever claimed to have come up with this theory. I do not know where the theory originated from, so I cannot give proper credit to who deserves it. I read a few comments on YouTube, as well as some theories posted on Reddit, and in this video, I'll compile all of those together, as well as connections I've made myself. Alright, now that's out of the way, let's get to some facts. To start this off, let's list off some known facts about Deacon. Number 1, Deacon is a compulsive liar. Number 2, Deacon isn't his real name, it's an alias. Number 3, Deacon has gone through multiple facial reconstruction surgeries. That's it. Only 3. Why only 3, you ask? Because number 1, Deacon is a compulsive liar. Throughout Fallout 4, while speaking to Deacon, he constantly lies to the sole survivor. He claims that he was among the first liberated Gen 3 synths, that he helped found the railroad in the early 2210s, and that he's the true leader of the organization, with Desdemona serving as a figurehead. There's not enough evidence to prove that any of these claims are true or false. With Deacon constantly lying, there is no definitive proof the backstory he gives you is correct. Deacon claims that, as a youth, he was a member of the University Point Death Claws, a gang which harassed accused synths. Their antagonism escalated to the lynching of a man suspected of being a Gen 3. Shaken by his part in the murder, Deacon left the gang to settle down as a farmer. Sometime later, he married a woman named Barbara. They intended to start a family, but the Deathclaws re-emerged and attacked the farm. The gang learned, to both Deacon and Barbara's surprise, that Barbara was a synth. Enraged by her execution, Deacon butchered the Deathclaws in a bloodthirsty haze. In the aftermath of the slaughter, he was contacted by the railroad, who were evidently unaware of his prior affiliation with the Uptown Deathclaws. Despite believing himself undeserving, Deacon swore himself to their cause. Beautiful. Except that it's all a ruse. Hey, Ruse, that's my friend's channel. You should go check him out. He has no videos. Anyway, let's analyze Deacon's story, shall we? The first big red flag is that he butchered the University Point Deathclaws after they killed his synth wife. Well, if you travel to University Point, there is no mention of the University Point Deathclaws or mention of Deacon butchering them in any terminals. The only solid information about University Point is that the whole town was slaughtered by the Institute. You would think if a gang once lived there, and then was massacred by one man, that they would have some record of it. Now, Deacon may not be telling a complete lie here. He may be telling a true story. A story that he's embellishing. But we'll get back to that later. With Deacon as a companion, he repeatedly makes references to the Capital Wasteland, such as referring to President Eden. By the way, anyone outside of the Capital Wasteland would have no idea who that is, or by stating that the Brotherhood in the Capital Wasteland weren't bad, but now? Or that he says, since we're a team, you think we should use a code name? Red Orchard? Or Code Violet? Or the Death Bunnies? Code Violet is the recall code for the only synth in Fallout 3, Harkness. And as we all know, synth recall codes are a very secret piece of information that are pretty much only known by the members of the Institute, or by the fact that the only way Deacon could ever know the recall code would be to physically meet Zimmer. Or even better, Deacon says, did I ever tell you about the time in the Capital Wasteland? Now there's a tale. I mean, come on! He even mentions Victoria Watts, the railroad agent the Lone Wanderer meets in Fallout 3, the same Victoria Watts that told the Lone Wanderer to lie. Number 1, Deacon is a compulsive liar. She says lie to Zimmer, and if the Lone Wanderer does that, they will join the railroad. The facts are here, people! Alright, I'm getting ahead of myself. Deacon says that he has had multiple facial reconstruction surgeries. The Lone Wanderer had the same access to facial reconstruction after meeting Dr. Horace Pinkerton, And despite the multiple surgeries, Deacon has the demeanor of someone in their mid-20s or early 30s. The Lone Wanderer in Fallout 3 was 19. Fallout 4 takes place 10 years after Fallout 3, placing the Lone Wanderer around 29 years old, which Deacon could pass for. Not convinced yet? Okay, I'm gonna rapid fire some facts now. Deacon mentions that he likes working alone, hence the Lone Wanderer title. Deacon says that he's a fan of Grognak the Barbarian. It is stated by Amada in the opening of Fallout 3 that Grognak the Barbarian is the Lone Wanderer's favorite character too. Deacon's default weapon is a hunting rifle. In every promotional picture or anything involving the Lone Wanderer, he is seen holding a hunting rifle. Deacon says one time he got a sex change and was a girl once, possibly hinting at Deacon's gender being ambiguous, just like the Lone Wanderers. Deacon has the knowledge of Shakespeare and other historical figures and facts, which is education generally given to vault dwellers. And finally, with Deacon not actually being his real name, the name Deacon is the name given to members of a clerical order ranked below a priest, generally in Christianity. And with the Bible references scattered all throughout Fallout 3, specifically Revelations 21:6, we can assume that the Lone Wanderer chose the name Deacon as a homage to his father, who was just filled with Bible references. Now, another thing that I need to point out is generally the canonical ending for all the Fallouts are the good karma endings, meaning the Lone Wanderer completed Project Purity and saved the Capital Wasteland, as well as eradicating the Enclave, and taking Adams Air Force Base for the Brotherhood. You know what else is a good karma decision? Lying to Zimmer, saving Harkness, and joining the Railroad. Alright, now I know what you're thinking. If this is really the canonical ending, then why isn't Deacon with the Brotherhood? After Project Purity, he was instated into the Brotherhood as a knight, so he'd be helping the Brotherhood in Fallout 4, not the Railroad. Well, my dear viewer, I have a tale to tell, one that I believe to be true. Sit back, relax, and open your mind, for I am going to fit the puzzle pieces together and prove to you, once and for all, why good old Johnny D. Deacon is the Lone Wanderer. In the next episode. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. It's kind of a dick move. Anyway, here's the story of the Lone Wanderer. During the events of Fallout 3, Sarah Lyons and the Lone Wanderer are hit by a massive radiation spike, placing the two in a coma. But the thing is, only the Lone Wanderer survived. How the Lone Wanderer survived in the first place after receiving that much radiation is extremely unlikely, and how both of them survived that much is just completely impossible. From Fallout 4, it is known that the Railroad has its fingers in everything, and will most likely have agents within the Brotherhood. Seeing that Sarah had died, and the increasing number of Brotherhood outcast supporters, as well as Owen Lyons nearing death of his old age, they felt Sarah would be the next best elder to take up the mantle and uphold the Lyons tradition, a tradition that went against the original Brotherhood back west. You see, Elder Lyons changed the primary objective from find technology to find technology and use it to better the lives of the people, which was a big no-no for the hardcore Brotherhood members. So the Railroad demoed that bitch and replaced the deceased Sarah with a synth that had all her memories. And no one suspected a thing. And as time went on, Sarah and the Lone Wanderer grew closer and became romantically involved, which can be hinted at when Sarah stating that she wanted to get to know the Lone Wanderer better, and eventually they got married. Soon later, Owen Lyons died, and Sarah took up the mantle as elder, just as the Railroad had hoped, and she kept the Lyons tradition going strong. But as time went on, more and more outcast sympathizers began to arise, and began to question Sarah's authority. They wanted to reintegrate the outcast and to go back to their old ways. But there was one problem. Sarah was the elder at the time. The outcast sympathizers needed a leader who could bring about the old Brotherhood ways. And who better yet to lead them than Arthur Maxson, the last heir of Roger Maxson, the founder of the Brotherhood of Steel. And with Maxson rallying behind them, they just needed to get rid of one problem. Sarah. Wait. What? Maxson will never kill Sarah, let alone okay an operation to kill her. Shit, man. Calm down. I can hear you raging in the comments already. Okay, man? Just chill. Man. For those who don't know what the Ragers are raging about, well, in Fallout 3, Maxson's personal terminal can be found, and in it, he says that he has a crush on Sarah and that she was his mentor. So it's safe to assume that he has feelings for her, or let alone cares for Sarah. Now, why would Maxson let Sarah die? Let's say somehow the Brotherhood find the Railroad spies and also find out that Sarah actually died back in Project Purity, and this new one is a synth. Now that the growing outcast supporters have this information that would change Maxson's opinion on her, they would bring it directly to Arthur Maxson. With this knowledge, Maxon's horrified and disgusted with himself for ever trusting or having feelings for such a monstrosity, thus placing justifiable seeds for Maxon's hatred of the railroad and sins. So Maxon had Sarah killed, thus confirming the Brotherhood assassination plot and explaining why she only had one sentence explaining that she fell in combat. The Brotherhood wouldn't want to highlight the fact that one of their elders was actually a synth, so they hid the assassination plot and gave her only one sentence. With this, Maxon assumed control and reintegrated the outcast into the Brotherhood, thus bringing back the good old ways. Yeah! Now, where's the Lone Wanderer in all of this? He was probably with Sarah when she died, and knowing the Brotherhood, they would know that the Lone Wanderer is resourceful and would eventually uncover their plot. So, Sarah and her hubby were both marked for death. Sarah, being the elder, was not likely to take up the front lines anymore. However, her being as bullheaded and trigger-happy as she's known for, they probably lied about an Enclave remnant forming and gaining power once more. So this made Sarah want to seek active duty again, to go stick it to those Enclave bastards. So, Sarah and the Lone Wanderer took up the front lines, and in a turn of events, Sarah, the Lone Wanderer, some Brotherhood soldiers, and Maxon, who was 16 at the time, turned up at the suspected Enclave location, only to find a trap. The Brotherhood soldiers accompanying them were actually Brotherhood outcasts, under the leadership of Maxon. After Maxon explains to Sarah what she is, he leaves, ordering the rest of the soldiers to kill the Lone Wanderer and Sarah. Being a badass, the Lone Wanderer survived the scrap by butchering the outcast members, only to find his wife Sarah had died. In the aftermath, the Lone Wanderer left the Brotherhood behind and was eventually contacted once more by the railroad. Despite believing himself undeserving, the Lone Wanderer swore himself to their cause in order to honor his wife. The Lone Wanderer eventually left with Victoria Watts and headed to the railroad headquarters. In order to hide himself from the Brotherhood, he dropped the title of the Lone Wanderer and received facial reconstruction to hide himself once and for all, making the elusive Lone Wanderer disappear without a trace. Thus bringing us to Fallout 4, where the lone Deacon Wanderer sits and waits for a new hero to arise from the ashes of the old world. So, is your mind intact? Great! Well, now you can subscribe to get more content from me. Depending on how this does, I plan on making more of these at least once a month, either about how to fix movies, games, or confirming theories, all in my opinion. Hence the name, in my opinion. And even better, I already have multiple episodes already written out, just waiting to be made. And if you want even more from me, I post gaming videos on Fridays and Sundays, so there's plenty of me to go around. So if you'll excuse me, I have a fantastic idea for the next video. That's a reference for the next one.